When Claire pulled up to the crumbling Victorian house in the woods of Vermont, she thought she was here to settle her estranged mother's estate. What she didn't expect was the girl in the attic, feral, mute, and staring at her with her own eyes. The police say the child doesn't exist. The neighbors say the house has been empty for years. But Claire remembers lullabies in that attic, and the scratches behind the walls. The more she stays, the more she hears them. Whispers in the vents, tapping in the dark. The sound of her mother's voice saying, "Don't trust what you remember." Claire Walsh hadn't spoken to her mother in over 10 years. She hadn't planned on ever seeing that house again, the one nestled in the woods off Route 22, behind a rusted iron gate and 2 acres of whispering pine. But death has a way of dragging old bones back into the light. The lawyer's voice on. The phone was monotone. "Your mother passed away last Thursday. You're the sole heir. There's property involved." The drive up was long and gray. Vermont in late October, the world between colors. The trees looked like veins in the fog. And the house looked worse than she remembered. Claire parked under a collapsed carport. The siding was peeling. The shutters hung like broken limbs. But it was the stillness that unnerved her. Not a bird, not a breeze, as if the woods were holding their breath. She took the keys from her coat and walked up the steps. The front door stuck. The lock moaned like something waking up. Inside, cold, stale. The furniture was covered in yellowed sheets. A photograph lay face down on the floor, her and her mother, she assumed, too dusty to see. The air smelled faintly of mold and something metallic. She explored in silence, not out of reverence but unease. The walls were cracked in places. Several rooms were locked from the inside. The master bedroom door wouldn't budge. Upstairs, the attic door was ajar. Claire hesitated. Her heart thudded like it used to when she was 8, hiding under the blankets while her mother screamed at shadows no one else could see. She pushed the door open. The attic was dark but not empty. A small figure crouched in the corner. At first, she thought it was a raccoon, some animal that had gotten in, but it was too still, too human. Then it turned. A girl, maybe 10, maybe younger, pale, filthy. Her hair was matted and she didn't speak. She just stared. Claire couldn't breathe. Her own eyes were looking back at her. The girl blinked. Claire stumbled backward, hitting her elbow on the doorframe. "What the hell? Who are you?" No answer. She ran downstairs, grabbed her phone, and called 911. "There's a child in the attic," she whispered. "I think she's been locked in. Please, she might be hurt." The dispatcher asked her to stay calm. But by the time the police arrived 20 minutes later, the attic was empty. No girl. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there at all. Just a music box on the floor, still playing. A lullaby Claire hadn't heard in 20 years, and she could swear, just before it stopped, she heard someone whisper, "You left her here." Claire didn't sleep that night. She stayed at a cheap motel 15 miles out, wrapped in a scratchy blanket, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The police had chalked it up to stress-induced hallucination. The officer, a baby-faced local with too much confidence, had even asked if she'd been drinking. She hadn't, not even caffeine, but she couldn't shake the image. The girl's eyes, wide and glassy, staring like she was trapped behind. Glass. Her own eyes, exactly. Same color, same freckles under the left one. Morning brought no relief. She returned to the house just after sunrise, convinced she'd find something the cops missed. A footprint, a scrap of cloth, anything to prove she wasn't losing her mind. The attic was empty. The music box was gone. But now, there were scratches on the inside of the attic door. Tiny ones. Fingernail-sized. Dozens of them, etched into the wood like a frantic plea for help. Claire's chest tightened. She called the police again. This time they brought a social worker. "No signs of recent habitation," the woman said, walking through with latex gloves. "No bedding, no food, no waste. Are you sure what you saw wasn't a dream?" Claire clenched her jaw. "I was awake." They left her with a business card and a brochure about grief counseling. By afternoon, the clouds had thickened and the house felt darker. Claire lit the fireplace, tried to make it feel less like a tomb. She found a half-frozen bottle of wine in the cellar and drank straight from it. It helped for a while, until the noises started. First it was tapping, faint, rhythmic, behind the walls. Then whispers, so soft she couldn't make out words, just the rise and fall of syllables. Like someone was speaking through the air. Vents. She tried turning up the TV. It didn't help. That night, as she brushed her teeth in the upstairs bathroom, the light flickered. The mirror steamed up despite the cold, and in the condensation, a message appeared. I remember. She spun around. No one. Nothing. She wiped the mirror clean, heart racing, and ran to her room. She locked the door, piled furniture against it like a child afraid of monsters. She barely slept. At 3:12 a.m. she woke to a sound she hadn't heard in over 20 years. Her mother singing. The voice was low, sweet, coming from the vents. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Claire froze. Then, a soft knock on the wall. Then another, right beside her bed. She leaned in, breath held. And this time, the voice wasn't her mother's. It was a child's. You left me here, she screamed, tore out of the room, down the stairs, into the night barefoot. Her hands were shaking as she sat on the front steps in the dark, breath visible in the air. She didn't call the police this time. She didn't know what to say, because deep down, a memory had stirred. A memory she wasn't supposed to have. She had been in that attic before, but she hadn't been alone. By the next morning, Claire had convinced herself it was sleep deprivation. Grief. Maybe even mold hallucinations. The house was old, damp, rotting in places. Logic, she told herself, was her only weapon. She made coffee, black, bitter, grounding. Then she pulled out her phone and called the lawyer. Do you have any old floor plans? She asked. Blueprints, records, anything. He sounded surprised. Not on hand, but the town registry might. Why? She lied. Just wondering about renovation options. An hour later, she was in the dusty records room of the town hall, flipping through archives while a disinterested clerk scrolled TikTok behind the desk. When she found the blueprint, her throat closed. There was an attic, a kitchen, 3 bedrooms upstairs, a living room, basement, all accounted for. But there was no door on the floor plan where Claire knew the attic entrance was. Just blank wall. She stared at it. Her memory was clear. The narrow staircase, the scratchy light bulb on a pull chain, the slant of the roof. She turned to the clerk. Is it possible this house had an unregistered room? He shrugged. In houses that old? Sure. People boarded stuff up all the time in the 60s and 70s, especially if they didn't want someone to find it. Claire copied the floor plan with her phone and drove straight back to the house. This time she didn't hesitate. She went up to the attic in broad daylight, flashlight in hand. But now the staircase was different, shorter. The door seemed lower on the ceiling, like it had shrunk. She climbed anyway. The room was just dust and cobwebs again, but on the far wall there was something new. A seam, almost invisible. But there. A vertical line in the paneling, like a door had once been there, painted over. Claire dropped to her knees and pressed against it. Hollow. She fetched a hammer from the old shed and chipped at the seam. The wood flaked, then cracked. Behind it, a void. A hidden chamber, maybe 6 feet by 8. Bare walls, no window. Just darkness, and the sharp smell of rot and ammonia. Inside, there was a mattress. Small, moldy, child-sized, and on the wall, in scratched crayon, the words, "Be quiet or they'll take you too." Claire staggered backward. Her stomach lurched. She clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from gagging. Suddenly she remembered a name. Not hers. Lily. That was the name she whispered to the attic girl in her dream last night. Lily. Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone. She searched. Lily Walsh, missing child, Vermont. A single result appeared, from 1997. A 2-year-old girl, Disappeared under unclear family circumstances. No body ever found. No charges filed. Mother, Margaret Walsh. Claire stared at the screen, because she wasn't born until 1998. But the girl in the attic. She was about 10 when Claire first left home. Something didn't add up. Unless Claire wasn't who she thought she was. Claire sat in the living room, knees pulled to her chest, the newspaper article still open on her phone. The house was silent except for the creak of old wood adjusting to wind. But the real storm was inside her, a sense of unraveling, of sliding backward into a truth she hadn't known was waiting. Lily Walsh, age 2, disappeared from her home in Essex County in July of 1997, last seen in the care of her mother, Margaret Walsh. The investigation was inconclusive. Claire whispered, the name again. Lily. Something cold touched her spine. Her mother never talked about a sister, never showed baby photos, never mentioned anyone named Lily. She stood abruptly and marched back to the bedroom, yanked open drawers, rifled through old boxes and journals. In the bottom of a cedar chest, buried beneath expired insurance papers, she found a stack of faded Polaroids wrapped in twine. She untied the bundle with shaking fingers. The first photo, her mother, younger, smiling, holding a baby. The next, the baby again, standing in a garden, maybe 2 years old, wearing yellow overalls. The third, the same baby. And Claire. But not as she remembered herself. She was smaller, unfamiliar, and there was something strange about her smile, like it didn't fit her face. Then came a letter, scrawled in pen, barely legible, dated 1998. She won't stop crying. I don't know what to do. The doctors say she has reactive attachment disorder, that she's not bonding, not connecting, but I see it in her eyes. She remembers. She knows she's not Lily. But if I just keep saying it, maybe she'll forget. She has to forget. It's the only way I can keep her. Claire's heart stopped. She has to forget. The letter dropped from her hands. That night, she didn't sleep. She couldn't. She sat on the floor, wine in hand, staring at the crayon writing in the hidden room behind the attic. Be quiet, or they'll take you too. That phrase haunted her, because now she understood. The room wasn't for punishment. It was for hiding, to keep a child from being taken. But who was hiding who? And from what? At 3:03 a.m., the music box started playing again. Claire bolted upright. She followed the sound upstairs, barefoot and shaking, her flashlight flickering. The attic door stood open. Inside, the music box sat in the center of the floor, spinning. Figures stood in the corner. The girl, Lily, dirty, silent, watching her. Claire dropped to her knees, trembling. Who are you? No answer. Tears spilled from Claire's eyes. I think I'm you, she whispered. Or maybe you're me. The girl took a step forward, her mouth opened, and in a voice like a rusted hinge, she said you were sick, that you'd forget. But you remembered me, Claire. You remembered. Claire gasped. The attic lights flickered. Somewhere below, the front door creaked open. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Claire turned, and for the first time since she arrived, she saw her mother, alive, standing at the bottom of the attic stairs, smiling. I was hoping you wouldn't come back. Claire couldn't move. Her mother, the woman who was supposed to be dead, buried, decomposing beneath cold Vermont soil, stood at the base of the attic stairs, one hand resting on the banister, her posture too calm for the madness it revealed. Margaret's voice was soft. Too soft. Come down, Claire, let's not do this here. Claire backed away. They said you died. Her mother tilted her head. Well, they were wrong. In the corner, the girl, Lily, blinked once and vanished like smoke. Gone. As if she'd never been there. Claire gasped, spinning, but Margaret didn't react. Stop looking for her, Margaret said. She's not yours to find. Claire's throat tightened. She's me, isn't she? Margaret took one slow step up. You're my daughter. No, I'm not. Another step. You are now. Claire's voice cracked. What did you do to her? Margaret's expression didn't change. She couldn't cope. They said she had trauma, that she wasn't attaching, but she just wouldn't stop screaming. I told them she was broken. But you... She pointed up at Claire. You were quiet. So quiet. You never screamed. I was drugged, Claire shouted. You locked me in that room. You were safe in that room, Margaret said sharply. Do you remember what you were like when they brought you to me? Skin and bone, covered in bruises. Your birth mother was a junkie. I saved you. Claire's stomach churned. That's not what happened. That's what you told everyone. But I wasn't adopted. I was stolen. Margaret's smile didn't falter. Same thing. Claire took a step forward. I found the letters, the photos. You tried to erase her. You made me forget who I was. Margaret's smile dropped. You were too, she hissed. You don't remember anything. But Claire did. It was all coming back in flashes now. The sound of locks turning behind her. The smell of bleach. The little plastic horses she used to line up on the windowsill. The hush-hush voice whispering lullabies through the wall. Lily hadn't disappeared. Lily had been disappeared. I want to know the truth, Claire whispered. Margaret climbed the last stair, face to face now. Her breath smelled faintly of gin and something floral, the perfume Claire used to associate with bedtime. You want the truth? Margaret said. Claire nodded. Her mother leaned in close. You were born to a woman who didn't want you. They were going to throw you into the system. I gave you a home. I gave you a name, and you never once said thank you. Claire recoiled. You think that makes it okay? Margaret's eyes glinted. You're here, aren't you? Claire realized her hands were shaking. Below them, the floor creaked again. A second set of footsteps. Margaret froze. Her head snapped to the stairs. Someone else was in the house. Claire turned, and from the shadows behind her, a voice spoke. A man's voice. Flat. Official. Margaret Walsh. FBI. Don't move. Margaret went still, and Claire, heart hammering, realized the trap had worked. She wasn't alone in the house anymore. The flashlight beam jerked as the agent stepped fully into view. He wore no uniform, just a worn jacket and a badge clipped to his belt. His voice was calm, but it carried the edge of authority honed by years of chasing ghosts through paperwork and bone. Claire, move away from her. Claire did. Margaret didn't resist. She stood there, framed by the attic door, arms at her sides like a mannequin. The agent stepped between them. You did the right thing, Claire. It took us months to connect the pieces. Your call sealed it. Claire blinked. You knew? He nodded. Your real name isn't Claire. It's Lily Annette Walsh, born July 14th, 1995. You were reported missing in '97 after your biological mother, a woman named Rachel Annette, disappeared from a women's shelter in Burlington. We think Margaret intercepted you. Claire swayed. The room tilted. The name Rachel stirred something deep, a scent of lilacs, a tattoo on a wrist, a laugh with a rasp. A real memory. The agent continued. Margaret forged records, faked adoption papers, even convinced a doctor to write off. Your developmental issues as trauma. Claire's voice cracked. So the girl I saw, the agent turned to look at her. There was no other girl, Claire. Claire staggered back. No, I saw her. She was real. She talked to me. She was you, he said softly. Your mind was trying to bring her back. Dissociation, compartmentalization, memory fragmentation, all common in cases of severe childhood trauma. Claire's subconscious had created the only witness who could tell her the truth. The child she used to be. The girl in the attic. The one who remembered. The music box. The crayon warnings. The lullabies. All of it fragments of a suppressed identity, surfacing through stress, grief, and return to the original trauma site. Margaret turned to face them both. Her voice was even. You think I'm a monster, but I gave her a chance. You saw how she turned out. Claire's hands curled into fists. You didn't save me. You erased me. Margaret tilted her head. And yet you came back. You felt it, the silence, the comfort. A part of you liked the forgetting. Claire stepped forward. No, a part of me was still trapped in that room. The agent moved in. Margaret Walsh, you're under arrest for kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, child endangerment. But Margaret didn't let him finish. In one sudden motion, she yanked something from her coat pocket, a long nail file, rusted and sharp, and lunged at Claire, the agent shouted. Claire stumbled, but it wasn't Claire who screamed. It was the walls. A high-pitched screech, like nails down plaster, echoed through the house. The sound of a child wailing. The house groaned. The attic light burst. Margaret froze mid-motion, eyes wide, mouth slack. Behind her, the hidden chamber's door creaked open on its own, and from the darkness, the child's voice returned. Not angry, not vengeful, just sad. You never said good night. Margaret dropped the nail file, and Claire finally understood. That voice wasn't a ghost. It was her mind, cracking open, releasing the scream it had buried 28 years ago. But the final memory had yet to surface. And when it did, it would change everything. They took Margaret away in silence. The agents said little as they cuffed her and read her rights. She didn't speak, didn't struggle. Just watched Claire the whole time with an expression that was almost proud. Claire stood in the attic, unmoving, as the hidden door slowly swung shut again, creaking like the end of a dream. The flashlight lay on the floor beside the broken music box. Its final note had long since died. The agent stayed with her while the others swept the property. There's a clinic in Montpelier, he said gently. We can get you a referral. People trained in memory trauma, identity confusion. You've been through, I remember. Claire whispered. He stopped. She looked at him, hollow-eyed. I remember what I did. The agent's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Claire didn't answer. She turned and walked down the stairs, hand trailing the banister like she needed something to tether her to gravity, because the final piece had fallen into place. It hadn't come in the form of a flashback. Not a scream, not a nightmare. It came when Margaret lunged at her. That smell, that perfume, lavender talc, baby powder and bourbon. The same smell from the night everything went silent. She walked through the house slowly, touching objects she hadn't really seen before. The dented tin in the kitchen where they used to keep dog biscuits, though they never had a dog. The piano missing half its keys. The broken clock stuck at 11:42 and the crawlspace door beneath the stairs. She knelt, opened it. Inside was a single cardboard box. She knew what was in it before she opened the lid. A photo. Lily as a baby. A lock of hair in an envelope. A hospital bracelet and a dress. Small, yellow, stained with something dark. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it out. That night, the one Margaret never spoke of, the one the therapist had always called the first blank, had never been a blank. Claire had tried to escape. She'd pushed open the attic window, climbed out onto the roof, screamed for help, and when Margaret found her, there was a struggle. Claire had fought. There was a fall. Not hers. Lily's. Lily had hit her head on the edge of the hidden room's frame. The blood, the silence, and the smell. Claire had killed Lily. She wasn't Lily. She was the replacement. Margaret hadn't stolen her out of cruelty. She had needed her, because Lily, the real one, had died. And Claire, some other forgotten foster kid, unwanted, traumatized, had become the fill-in, the substitute, the girl who forgot, the girl who was made to forget, the girl who was trained to smile in photographs and answer to the wrong name. Claire stood, the dress in her arms, and screamed for so long. Her throat went raw, but it wasn't a scream of guilt. It was a scream of freedom, because now she knew who she was. Not Lily, not Margaret's, just Claire. And that was finally enough.